Welcome back to Crawford-Clark Close-Up. For what feels like the longest time this year since lockdown began and scheduled new releases for 2020 were being delayed until next year, it seemed inevitable that Christopher Nolan's 11th feature film, the hugely anticipated summer blockbuster Tenet, would be going the same way. But now, as we enter the final third of the year, Nolan's first feature since 2017's Dunkirk has finally begun its wide release. Time will soon tell whether audiences will still be flocking to open cinemas worldwide for the first big cinematic release since March this year. With the release of the mind-bending Tenet, we've been spending some time during lockdown going back through the Nolanography to rank all 11 of his feature films to date. It's been an illustrious career to date for the now 50-year-old London-born director, whose often unique visions have helped craft some of the most diverse stories of the 21st century. From expressive short subjects like 1997's Doodlebug, through the reinvention of Batman, to mindbenders like The Prestige and Inception, to journeys into sci-fi with Interstellar, we've ranked all the Christopher Nolan movies to date. As always, this list is subjective, so there's bound to be many of you who disagree with our choices. Rather than slagging off our ranking, comment below with your favourite Nolan movies and let us know what you think of Tenet if you've seen it. Housekeeping. Come and find Crawford-Clark Close-Up on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. You can also drop us an email with suggestions for future reviews on the channel to crawfordclarkcloseup@gmail.com. Most importantly, if you enjoy this video and want to be informed when we upload new content, please subscribe to the channel at the top of the page. Let's get started at number 11 with perhaps inevitably Nolan's shortest feature to date, his first from 1998. Filmed across weekends over a year with fellow graduates from University College London, including Nolan's partner and producer on all his films to date, Emma Thomas, Following follows a young man who begins stalking random people before getting caught by a burglar who takes him under his wing and instructs him on the ways and habits of people. Even on a shoestring budget of approximately $6,000 with borrowed locations such as Nolan's parents' house and actors wearing their own clothes to keep film costs down, this 70-minute debut shot in black and white launched Nolan onto audiences, and he immediately begins subverting linear narrative structure and throws in a twist for good measure. It's a good start with clear talent on display behind the camera, but obviously there was greater still to come. At number 10, and it pains me to say this given that this looked like an incredible movie from the trailers, I've got Nolan's latest, Tenet. I don't think I've ever felt so confused by plot and infuriated by sound mixing in a movie in my life. About 30 minutes in, I was getting a headache and nausea from some of the sloppy editing choices and frankly impossible to hear dialogue. What should have been another fascinating premise well executed from one of the biggest filmmakers in the business comes across as too convoluted and messy for its own good. When you've even got lead characters teasing each other by not letting each other in on the machinations of the plot, you know you're fighting a losing battle. Kenneth Branagh and Elizabeth Debicki probably give the film's best performances, as they come across as the only two with any real depth or personality. All the above being said, the action set pieces are pretty extraordinary from the get-go, most especially the freeway action between the cars. Ludwig Göransson's score impresses, though it would be a more pleasant experience to listen to it independently from the film, as it dominates every sequence with the results of being loud and intimidating when all you really want to hear is what the characters are saying. I really want to say I'll return for a second viewing of Tenet to see if, like a number of other confused first-time viewers, I'll do a 180 on my opinion, but I really can't see it happening for a while. A real wasted opportunity, and I say that with a huge amount of regret, considering I was expecting to have this in my top 3 Nolan movies at the very least when I started compiling this ranking. At number 9, we have 2017's Dunkirk. Characterisation takes second step to the stark visuals and effects, leaving at once a satisfying film to look at, yet, under the surface, a dull affair. Dunkirk is another of Nolan's shortest films. When it works, it impresses, but more often than not, this feels like a wasted opportunity with too many lulls in the narrative to make this truly engaging. Perhaps a good contrast to this film and its characterisation, or lack thereof, would be Sam Mendes' 1917. Both set during war, 1917 makes us focus on largely a single protagonist for the majority of the film's runtime, so we feel like we're in their footsteps and sharing their experience. I can't remember a single main character name in Dunkirk, or the names of any bit characters, apart from the fact that reviews at the time of the film's release proclaimed that Harry Styles was pretty good. At number 8, it's the final chapter of the Dark Knight trilogy. Rises had an enormous amount to live up to after critics and audiences apiece were blown away by Nolan's middle chapter of his reinvention of Batman. Rises is operatic in its approach, but at close to 3 hours it's far too long and has far too many characters and threads to tie together that it starts to become a headache by the second act. The ensemble are brilliant, however, with Michael Caine, Tom Hardy and Gary Oldman in particular on top form. There was too much expectation coming off The Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises ultimately felt like a bit of a letdown. Next, at number 7, we have Nolan's foray into sci-fi. Having frequently cited Kubrick's groundbreaking 2001 as a film favourite, Nolan brought back some regulars whilst also working for the first time with the likes of Matthew McConaughey and Matt Damon. Interstellar is another example of style over substance. The film boasts some of the strongest effects work of any mainstream film in recent memory, yet the characters and their motivations feel somewhat hollow and cliché. The film also drags significantly in the first act and feels far too drawn out as a whole. Just outside the top 5, we have Insomnia, the remake of the same-titled 1997 Norwegian thriller, with great turns from Al Pacino, Hilary Swank, and especially Robin Williams. It's moody, atmospheric, and on a budget of $46 million, was Nolan's first real foray into bigger budget movie making with star players. For Nolan, making Insomnia still relatively early in his career was a nice progression, and we're unlikely to argue. It also feels like one of the most un-Nolan Nolan features, which certainly isn't to the film's detriment. Beginning the top 5, we come to Nolan's second feature, and arguably one of his best written, based off a short story conceived by his brother Jonathan, Memento. Guy Pearce is engrossing as tattooed protagonist Leonard, whose life is constantly in rewind for the audience as we piece together his interactions with other characters as we attempt to discover who killed his wife. Carrie-Anne Moss and Joe Pantoliano, fresh off their work on The Matrix, are both great support in this straight thriller. For Nolan at the time of release back in 2000, the nice thing about Memento's success is it shows there's an audience for more adult, interesting movies. People in LA stopped me in restaurants and told me how much they liked it. It was bizarre. I never had that in London. At 4, we have Nolan's first big budget piece. After the shockingly disappointing Batman and Robin brought the DC franchise to an abrupt halt after its 1997 release, Warner Brothers would begin working alongside Christopher Nolan back in 2003 to revitalise The Dark Knight. 2005's Batman Begins demonstrates Nolan's ability to inject passion into a project and breathe life back into an iconic character. Whilst not appearing the immediately obvious choice, Christian Bale is superb as vigilante Bruce Wayne and Batman, and the supporting cast around him are terrific, from Liam Neeson to Michael Caine to Gary Oldman, and an excellent turn from Cillian Murphy. For Nolan, it was vital to stay true to the iconic character, but of course, there had to be a unique reason for making this film. Otherwise, you may as well just go to the video store and rent Tim Burton's version. Our top 3 choices for Nolan's best works to date are all, in our opinion, 5-star knockouts, any one of which could probably be our number 1. At number 3, we have one of Nolan's best crafted films with 2 knockout performances from Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman. The Prestige tells the story of rival magicians trying to outdo each other and discover the methods behind one another's secrets. Shot directly after Batman Begins, Bale embodies the entirely different character of Borden, whilst Jackman is Angier. It's a period piece with sophistication and a brilliant finale that will have you wondering how you could have missed such an intricately woven setup. Adapted from Christopher Priest's 1995 award-winning novel, the script was 5 years in the writing for the Nolan brothers. Chris admits that from a filmmaking point of view, The Prestige has one of the most complicated structures I've used because it's narratives within narratives and voiceovers within voiceovers. Just missing out on our number one by a fraction is 2008's The Dark Knight, widely regarded by many as not only the best superhero movie of all time, but also one of the best movie sequels. For Nolan, the biggest challenge of the film creatively, I think, was to expand and enlarge the world we created in Begins, both in a narrative sense, through story and characterization, and in a physical sense, in terms of the scale of the action. The film was shot on IMAX cameras to make the film-going experience feel more immersive, and in order for Gotham City to feel more physically imposing. Dark Knight is at once a darker and glossier film than Begins, with brilliant action set pieces, fantastic dialogue, yet undeniably some preachy dialogue. The film is quite rightly praised for the extraordinary performance from the late Heath Ledger, who commands the screen from scene one as the nihilistic Joker and is a pure display of an actor fully immersing themselves in a character to the point that the actor disappears. But the other newcomers to the franchise are also great, most notably Aaron Eckhart as Harvey Dent and Two-Face. Everything is stepped up a level from its predecessor to create a rich, satisfying experience. And in pole position, the only Nolan film to date where we honestly came away from our first viewing of the film desperate to see it again to fully appreciate all its nuances, is the mighty Inception. You can tell that this was a passion project for Nolan, and the execution of his ideas has yet to be bettered. The cast are outstanding, from Joseph Gordon-Levitt to Tom Hardy, to Ellen Page, Cillian Murphy, Michael Caine, Ken Watanabe and Marion Cotillard, all supporting Leonardo DiCaprio's brilliantly written lead, Cobb. What sets a film like Inception apart from Tenet, apart from the fact that it's arguably easier to follow, is that the storytelling feels tighter, the ambition is well realised throughout, and the dialogue is decipherable. Inception is a visual and intellectual masterpiece that's one of Nolan's most profitable features, taking just over $800 million worldwide, and it also earned 4 Oscars for the sumptuous cinematography, groundbreaking visual effects, as well as sound mixing and editing. For us, this still currently remains Christopher Nolan's magnum opus. Christopher Nolan is one of the most profitable filmmakers in the business. Over the last 20 years, his box office total has almost reached $5 billion. His films have garnered 5 Oscar nominations, and 7 of his movies feature in the IMDb Top 250. For Nolan, making movies is exactly what I've always wanted to do. It's the greatest privilege there is. Fine work if you get the opportunity. So there's our ranking of all the Christopher Nolan feature films to date. Let us know your thoughts on our list and your own rankings in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to us at the top of the page if you enjoyed this video. Coming up next, we'll be donning the tux once again, as we'll be returning to our James Bond retrospective as we delve into the Pierce Brosnan movies, starting with our thoughts on 1995's GoldenEye. Look out for that very soon. For now, thanks for watching, and until next time, that's a wrap.